Soca Queen Alison Hines, Chairman of the Barbados Private Sector Association Trisha Tannis, and President of manufacturing powerhouse Ian Hickling are the toasts of Barbados this year. They're being awarded honorary doctoral degrees by the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus. And ahead of the convocation on October 21st, CBC sat down with each one to hear what the honor means to them. Hi, I'm Stacey Russell, and in this special edition of NewsPULSE, we hear from Hickling, Hines, and Tannis how they are likely to go on to make even further contributions to society and their spheres of influence, now with their doctoral degrees. An artist, an accountant, a scientist, sharing traits of working hard, being dedicated, taking risks. Alison Hines, well known regionally and internationally for her repertoire of Caribbean music, especially soca.
What I've done and the way that I've gone about what I do, I just always wanted to do my best. That was it. It wasn't with these things in mind. Sorry, it wasn't with any of this in mind. It's always been about just giving of my all and doing my best.
Trisha Tannis, the astute financial professional leading the private sector through the COVID-19 pandemic.
I often tell persons my career is not this well-crafted 12-point how to get to something story, which I'm very often asked, how do you do this? And I have to honestly say that it is best that you let God chart and unfold that path for you, but you do have to put your hand up and say, even if you're afraid, yeah, I think I can do that, or I want to do that, or I'd prefer not to spend my life thinking, what if I didn't do it?
Ian Hickling, literally from the other side of the world, New Zealand, choosing Barbados to set up business.
Yes, we've been here 27 years and we set up this company, LensTech, so I consider it an honour mostly for LensTech as recognition of what the team here have achieved for the country.
None of them ever thought they'd be conferred with honorary doctorate degrees.
It is a Doctor of Letters. From what I understand, it is presented and I guess bestowed upon people who have excelled in excellence and have actually had a profound effect on their chosen field. So they have changed the way that, they've changed that particular field in a significant way. So I feel very honored. I was not expecting anything like this. I was like, what? I'm like, okay, me? Yes. Little old me? I was ecstatically happy. I really, really was.
It's a doctorate in laws, honorary doctorate of laws.
And did you see this coming? Did you have any idea that sometime in the future you would have a law
degree? Not at all. To some degree, I'm still taking it all in, and profoundly humbled that the University Council would have bestowed this on me. As I would have actually graduated from the University of the West Indies 30 years ago.
You don't look old.
It's a Doctor of Science degree. I have a Master of Science and a Master of Business Administration from New Zealand and from the UK. But I had to work really hard for those. To be offered a degree out of the blue is quite something.
As president of LensTech Barbados Inc., Hickling oversees the manufacture of high-end medical devices.
Which means we make intraocular lenses, which are tiny little lenses that get put inside your eye when you have a cataract operation. And we sell around 750,000 of them every year. So we are now apparently Barbados' largest exporter, and we export something like half of those devices to China. So we are the largest exporter to China as well. And each one of those lenses goes into a patient's eye to cure their cataract blindness. So we export to China, we export to the US, we export to Europe, Korea, Japan, pretty much any country you can think of, certainly more than 50 countries.
A product of the village of Union in St. Philip, Tanis was intent on staying in the shadows as a chartered accountant.
At that point, I just saw myself as being an accountant, a career accountant. And I was very comfortable with that vision. I mean, as a 21-year-old, you don't really know what's going to happen in the future. You really do hope for the best. And what has transpired since then has been anything but mundane, and certainly not what I would have even wanted for myself at that point as a 21-year-old, because I am naturally introverted, and the profession of accountancy, I think, was very, very well suited to my personality. And I really had no ambitions other than sitting down crunching numbers and being happy and over the spotlight. So, honors like this and what has happened in the last 30 years have really gone against the grain of what I would have seen for myself.
The devout Christian is the first female managing director of Unicomer Barbados Limited and within the Unicomer Caribbean and Latin America group, saying God is plotting the course of her life.
I have never once actually pursued any of this, and that's the interesting thing.
Okay.
Never once. It has always been a door opening, either next to me, in front of me, and a decision to be made. And I always have had the choice to either go for it or to turn away. And I have consistently said, okay, well, sure, let's go for it.
Her most difficult decision after starting her career at one of the big four accounting firms, PricewaterhouseCoopers, was as president of the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
Regardless of what career path you choose, once you are going to be a leader in that path, you are going to have to interact and interface with people, and you're going to have to make difficult decisions. And I think COVID-19 and the really hard choices that business leaders had to make, including myself, particularly in that period between March and June 2020, when we essentially had to lay persons off in ways that we really had not done before, in an atmosphere of uncertainty for them, for us, and hope for the best. Even though, we would have done our best to make sure that we would have met all of our commitments to them, supported them, brought as many of them back as possible, but still, not being able to rehire all. I think that period certainly stands out as the period of greatest difficulty.
As chairman of the Barbados Private Sector Association since September 2021, Tanis remains concerned about some fallout from the pandemic.
What is a little known fact is that female unemployment has not recovered since the onset of the pandemic. It has lagged male employment.
And why do you think that is?
It is difficult to say. We now have to segment the sectors to see where those jobs were lost. But we haven't really analyzed that, beyond the peripheral, in terms of a data point. But I think it is something that we do have to dig deep into very, very quickly, because statistics would actually reveal, certainly with small developing economies like ours, females contribute significantly more to the economy in terms of their output. The fact that they are typically heads of homes. They're natural economists in their own right. For our economy to thrive, we do need to correct that very, very quickly.
She is hoping that being bestowed with her honorary Doctor of Laws degree would highlight her as an inspiration to other women.
I mean, ultimately, we can only tell our own story, right? Another woman may have a different story. My story is one where I've had to succeed in what has been known as a man's world. Mm-hmm. And when I'm asked, well, how does a woman succeed in a man's world? And I say, well, the same way the man succeeds in a man's world. You have to perform. You don't get any points for being a female. Right? You have to perform. You have to be effective. Typically, then I would be asked, well, what about the glass ceiling? And it does exist. I'm not naive enough to think it doesn't exist, and the fact that relatively few females actually make it through, to boardrooms, I think in itself tells you that there is definitely somewhat of a glass ceiling. But my advice is to change buildings.
How?
Change buildings. Keep looking. Keep looking. If you are in a context where you really don't think that your true value, is being, used, keep looking. Right?
When you say keep looking, what do you
elsewhere? That's what I mean. Change the building. Change the building. That's the only power that you have.
And if most of the buildings are the same, similar,
then you're gonna have to build your own building. You're gonna have to build your own building. And sometimes God makes us uncomfortable in that way, and we keep looking for someone else's building and somebody else's table to pull up a seat at. Sometimes that gets all ripped away because God wants you to do your own. Build your own table. Make your own chair. Not everybody essentially is called to shatter that ceiling of somebody else's building. Some of us may be called to build our own buildings, right? Create our own outcomes. Okay, there's still too few women like me, and I think the world has come a long way, sure, but it still has a long way to go. I live for the day when I'm no longer being asked about succeeding in a man's world, i.e. business. One day there won't be that distinction in terms of whose world it is. It will be the world of business.
Similarly, Alison Hines, since becoming the lead vocalist for Barbadian band Square One at 17 years old, has been making her way through masculine territory, fueled by her dream and passion.
I was that young person. I was that person who didn't know what was going to be in store for her. But I knew that my passion was to sing. My passion was to be involved in music. I used to imagine I had a brush for a microphone. I would be in front of my mirror. I had all the antics down, and I would imagine being on stage in front of thousands of people. I didn't know how it was going to happen.
Interestingly, for someone like yourself, forging the path that you have, you don't necessarily go to school or university to learn that.
Correct.
So you're really a pioneer, aren't you?
Yes. And I mean, we have amazing creatives that have gone and done theater arts and, gone and studied various disciplines within music and so on. And my journey was different. My journey was, I've always known how to sing from a little girl. To have had the journey that I have had and had the success that I have had and the effect that I have had on, that my music has had on the diaspora and the Caribbean landscape and beyond is something that 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old me could never have imagined.
She relocated to Barbados from England with her mom at 11 years old, appointed cultural ambassador for Barbados in 2017.
Growing up in East London, if anybody had said to her, well, you're going to become the queen of soca, I will be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even know what soca is.
Now, as the queen of soca indeed, she says when it comes to pushing the genre globally, the Caribbean must band together.
You know, once you network and you get to meet and connect with people within those markets where soca isn't traditionally in, that's where, you know, and then you have to understand that market, understand what, how can you work, how can you bring what soca brings into that particular market. So it's there's a lot of like behind the scenes work that I know is being done and will continue to be done in order, but it can't be like, and the thing is, it can't be just one person. It's not going to happen with just one artist or two artists or five artists or 10 artists. It has to be a movement of of all the artists. And you know, it's, we get kind of caught up in the individual islands, you know, as in, you have Asian artists and Trini artists and Canadian artists. And at the end of the day, we have to represent the Caribbean as a whole. You're proud to be from the island that you're from, and there's nothing wrong with that. I am proud to represent Barbados. But if we really want to be on that world stage, soca has to be a genre in and of itself, and Caribbean artists. It has to be Caribbean at its core. When people are looking from the outside in, they want to see numbers. They want to see bottom lines. They want to see, are you selling units? What are your streams looking like? They don't care about what island you come from, or that. They're not interested in that. They're interested in the quality of the music and what the bottom line is. What are your numbers saying? Numbers speak.
You're really a pioneer. What you've done is not something that you could have typically gone to university to study, but you're now in a position to help the University of the West Indies to
Right.
put together a curriculum, perhaps. What would you be saying to the University of the West Indies that has a number of campuses
Right.
throughout the Caribbean?
Right.
What would you say?
I know that Cave Hill campus has the Barrow Center for
Creative
the
imagination.
creative imagination, which is great because, you know, there's a theater and so they're looking at creatives, looking at you know, that's a focus on us. What I would like to do is, because I've never really had the opportunity to fully like understand what that is, and I know there's another one. There's a theater arts one at Barbados Community College. I know they also have a creative arts, theater arts, music, everything. But if I can, you know, if I can help in any way to be able to add more more aspects to that, and even if I can be a part of it, because ultimately I am still a touring artist. I am still headlining events overseas, all over the world. And so I have real world experience that I can then teach, and I can teach, you know, the little techniques and the little tricks of the trade that you can only learn by doing, by actually being in the experience and by actually being a part of it. Because there's a lot of little things that I was taught that aren't necessarily going to be taught in a course.
At age 53, she hopes being conferred with her honorary Doctor of Letters degree would create more opportunities for her to help women.
I'm in that part of my life now to really expand the brand that is Allison Hines, and to explore some other things, and to be able to bring more attention to the things that are important to me when it comes to things like women's rights and the case of children and really, exploring those things, development of creatives, especially females within our genre, soca, because it is still quite a male-dominated genre. We have quite a few successful females, but for me in Barbados, I want to incubate and develop female artists more. I want them to really go out there and be able to hold their own, on any stage, anywhere.
Having been appointed the Caribbean International Federation of Business and Professional Women Goodwill Ambassador in 2014, she is sticking with the cause.
Female empowerment has always been a part of me from long time. Before I had a daughter, before any of that, like that's something that is important to me, because we as women of color, as Caribbean women, we've made a lot of strides and we've made a lot of progress, but there's still a lot more to go. And it's still a fight. It's still a fight for women to be recognized in certain jobs, in certain positions. Of course, we know that there's still the pay gap in terms of how women are paid less than men for the same positions and doing the same work. And those are things that I want to continue to be able to draw attention to. And with this honor, I want to be able to really dig in some more. And there's other things that I want to be able to, in terms of the brand, and going into things that I can capitalize on my branding, into other things that don't involve me having to be on stage. So it's almost like a transitional phase for me right now. So all of this happening, getting the degree, and where I am in my life, it kind of all plays into each other and it interconnects. So I'm excited about what I can do going forward, having this degree.
Meanwhile, Hickling, through his company Lens Tech, is empowering young graduates from the University of the West Indies, employing nearly 250 Barbadians.
The local university produces a lot of science graduates. A lot of them don't get great jobs. We give great jobs here. We give an opportunity for people to apply their science skills and to develop new products. So, for example, this lens here, this is just a plastic model of one, but this lens is something which, this is probably 20 times size. The typical size is about that, a centimetre long. This lens is the most advanced lens in the world, and we make it here, and it's been developed here. It's been validated here. All of the international regulatory work that goes on, all of the testing happens here with local graduates. So UWI's been integral to what we do. If UWI wasn't there, we wouldn't have a business. It's been really important that we get good graduates from UWI. All of our software programs are built here by UWI graduates. We have clinical experts who work on getting these lenses approved overseas, and that's all Bajans.
The graduate from the University of Auckland with a Bachelor of Science in Cell Biology and Biochemistry and Master of Science in Biochemistry was proud to explain with his prototype what the lenses do.
If I take the top off this eye here, you have two areas where the light is bent. So the purpose of the eye is to focus light from outside onto the retina at the back. Most of that bending of light occurs at the cornea, but you have this little lens right in the middle, and the purpose of that lens is to focus the last little bit. So it enables you to focus between distance and near. So the shape of this changes. And with age, this clear plastic bag has a liquid inside which can turn milky white, and eventually it can get really opacified. So what the purpose of cataract surgery is to take the front off this bag, to liquefy the contents of it, suck those out and replace them with a lens. So that lens will then go into that little bag. It's probably the most successful operation in the world. We do around 2,000 a year in this country, and as soon as someone's had cataract surgery, they can see again.
When we come back, we hear about Barbados as an ideal business destination and making education relevant. Hickling believes what he's been able to achieve through the company involving UE graduates shows Barbados as an excellent place to do high-end business.
What we export are very, very small. We export them by courier because they're high-value items, and Barbados is great for that kind of thing. If you have products which are very, very cheap, I think the cost structure, because it's an expensive place to live here, don't work so well. But if you have things like pharmaceuticals, medical devices, this is the ideal place to do it. The transport links we have here, you can see over my shoulder the airport, the planes that we get here, we certainly have better connection to the world than our head office, which is in Tampa, Florida. So yeah, a lot of things work here. It's a great place to live if you're an expat, and I think you'll find that some of the expats who start a business here, the initial reason they started was because they like the way of life here.
Having worked in the pharmaceutical industry in the past, he's convinced that the island ought to press on with manufacturing medicines on a large scale.
And we have a lot of the factors that would be useful in establishing a pharmaceutical industry. First of all, we have the local university, and I'm aware of some researchers there who identified an antibiotic that was available in local sponges which are gathered off the west coast. So we have the ability to discover compounds. Also, because we have a lot of science graduates, we have the ability to screen those compounds, and large-scale screening of chemical compounds is something that almost all pharmaceutical companies do. And so we could attract some of the largest pharmaceutical companies to come here and establish a screening facility. And we also have one or two small pharmaceutical manufacturers here who could benefit from having scale up. And again, I think because of the local university, the chemistry department, we could do a lot of work in synthetic work. So most pharmaceuticals are an organic chemical of some sort, and they could work on the synthesis of them as well.
Talking about a significant eye study done in Barbados, he says the award of his honorary Doctor of Science degree encourages him to achieve even more through lens tech.
We are often called by associate companies, people that we deal with in the States and around the world, to work on new projects. And I think what it's done is allowed me to reflect on our relationship with the local university and how we might embed ourselves more in that. So I think the university has a huge number of different expertises, and for one, for example, is a biostatistician. It's somebody who is able to look at the statistics involved in clinical trials. And I think that we have the kind of expertise there that can all be put together and turned to increase the way of life, the benefits to this country. So, for example, most people don't know this, but Barbados was the site of the largest eye study ever conducted. It was conducted in the 1980s and 90s. It was called the Barbados Eye Study. And it was conducted mostly by, I think, American university that came down here. And what they did was they followed around 2,000 people for 20 or so years, and it enabled them to look at the progression of eye disease. So, as you're probably aware, the NCDs, non-communicable diseases, we have a huge amount of glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy, hypertension, and all that kind of thing here. And most of the research around the world on those diseases has been done in Caucasian populations, so in large places like the States or Europe. Barbados was the very first study where they looked at a largely black population, and so the amount of information that they gathered out of that is incredible. So the Barbados Eye Study it's world-renowned. Not many people in Barbados know about it, except those people who were involved in it. And it enabled people to look at how these diseases start and they develop. And so I think that what I see from getting this degree is an opportunity to restart that kind of thing so that we can look at better ways of treating those NCDs here.
Tricia Tanis, a strategic partner of the Cave Hill campus strategy to drive entrepreneurship and innovation, also shares her vision for growing businesses and the economy.
We're going to have to shift towards young entrepreneurs as really the grassroots and the barometer for how well the society is doing and growing. Business is not, if we're going to be sustainable and we're going to burst out into the new revolution and renaissance of what business is going to be like and how the Barbados economy is probably going to be growing in the future. I think we all agree that it's not going to be necessarily the traditional industries, construction, tourism, manufacturing, and so on. No, I think they will always be with us. But Barbados is going to have to essentially harvest the assets that are locked up in our education, the assets that are locked up certainly in a new, very agile mentality in terms of our young people and how they view business. We are going to have to redefine what failure is in business, because that's a huge stumbling block for Black people in particular entering into business. And I think we all understand why.
Why?
Well, I think there's more at risk. There are fewer resources, and therefore failure, quote unquote, means a lot more to someone who doesn't have deeper pockets. Right? Persons with deeper pockets can risk a bit more. When you're losing all that you have, if you put all that you have in a business and you're in a context where you can't, tap into other resources easily, then we understand the mindset. There's concern, right? But the stigma that's attached to failure, particularly of Barbadian businesses, I think we have to shake. Failure in business is a universally accepted way to grow and to learn and to do better.
She recommends focusing on viable services and, as LensTech is doing, utilizing graduates from various educational institutions.
In terms of the vision for what business is going to reshape and that imbalance between imports and exports, I think let's be fair. I don't think Barbados is ever going to be a commodity exporter, but we have a tremendous value in being service-oriented exporters. Our service has been dominated by hospitality at the moment. We do have some very vibrant financial services sector. But it's time to tap into that in a much deeper way. Digitalization, of our globe. Those services that it brings. Animation, all sorts of, cultural industries. and services sectors. I think that's where the trade imbalance is going to have to get back to the middle. And those are the types of things that I think Barbados is going to have to really plant its flag on in terms of attracting international foreign direct investment. Yes, we are going to have tourism as a backbone of this economy for a while. Yes, we're going to need construction to give us a boost in the arm and really start getting jobs being registered very, very quickly. But beyond that, in terms of where our people are at, I mean, every year we turn out about 3,000 to 4,000 graduates, either from secondary school or community college or university. More and more, we're running out of spaces, for those persons to thrive. We do need to look globally, even beyond our shores, for opportunities, for our people. And that does not necessarily have to come at a cost. We should have bilateral agreements. We have a preponderance of social services and social scientists. Must be some, we can leverage our relationships with our partners, our trading partners, in terms of talent, soft skills, creating opportunities, high paying opportunities for our people. We have to get beyond the agriculture and the farm programs, and the cruise ship programs, into really high paying industries. Now our nurses already are onto that, right? And we're not encouraging brain drain, but we're encouraging essentially where there's an excess that we cannot use and that we can actually monetize for both our country and our people at the same time. Then, I think those are the kind of very innovative models that I think are going to take us forward.
As Tanis, who went to the secondary school Harrison College, envisions fresh graduates driving the economy, she wants to see a major shakeup of the educational system.
It is about what they're learning, but it is probably more about how they are learning. And I'll explain it this way. When I went to school, I loved English literature. I thought it was the greatest scam of a subject because I could say anything once it was based on the book and once it was a reasonable response. Full marks. I loved it. I have 2 children that are growing up in this education system, and I'm appalled at the limitations that the current system places on our children's capacity to think. What is egregious is that at 16, then we release them out into the world, and guess what we ask them to do? We ask them to think critically. We ask them to push back. We ask them to analyze. But we've spent 16 years or 13 years teaching them how not to do that. All right? If you look at the average CXC script, there is a prescribed set of answers. Okay? Every year we have farmed those papers out to markers who are going to mark within those 5 possibilities. Stacy, who died and said that your brain can only develop 5 answers to anything, and that the 6th answer is wrong. That is where we have to start. Okay, let's not even get to the content. Let's get to how we're actually engaging the concept of education. Because is that really what we have right now? Or do we have a system that's elitist, that is designed to separate the proverbial sheep from the goats, the whole mark on a curve, the whole nobody can get 100%? I mean, we've all grown up. Is that an education system? An education system is designed, should be designed to educate, not to segregate. That is the system that we have. We talk about no child left behind. All right, but right now, if you're the mother of a special needs child, there are no options. There are very few options, and what options you have are expensive. All right, so before you even get to getting into the world of business, business is not separated from the society in which business is founded and operates within.
True.
These are all business-related issues, whether we like it or not, because ultimately, we're going to get an individual presenting themselves in a boardroom for an interview that cannot think, that only knows how to conform to those 5 answers. Okay? So I would submit to you, before we get into the content of what businesses need to see, I would love to see how teaching methodologies being confronted as the first way to go. We have the majority of our kids failing CXC maths, Stacy, across the region. and in Barbados, the majority of children sitting CXC maths are failing the science of life. And every year we hold press conferences and we lay it out before the public. I cannot point to one innovation, one response, one note of righteous indignation from the authorities to say this something is fundamentally wrong. Either we've lost our way, we don't know how to teach it, the syllabus is too broad, something.
On what her honor from the University of the West Indies would stimulate her to do in the future, she says,
I didn't expect the honor, but I am, not going to stop until I can answer that question in terms of how do I use this? What platform will it open up for me to continue to represent people? That's essentially, I think, what led me here. How I was able to lend some value, I hope, during the crisis. The side of the business person isn't really told very often. There are very biased views that dominate our headlines a lot, and I think I was privileged in a very stressful time that has defined, I think, not just our history but global history, to have been given the chance to speak on behalf of others in a way that I hope was compelling, and that, though not perfect, helped in some small measure to stabilize this country.
Alison Hines has been so focused on mapping the blueprint for her career in the music business, she didn't go on to higher education. Instead, her accolades being numerous hits like Ragamuffin, Ay Ay Ay, and Faluma with the band Square One. As a solo artist, peaking at number 52 on the Billboard R&B charts in 2006 with another hit, Roll It Gal. This song being featured in several Hollywood productions such as Grey's Anatomy. For her, the honorary Doctor of Letters is extra special.
It's always wonderful to be recognized for your contribution, but also to be recognized by a very prestigious educational institution where our Caribbean people go to get their various degrees and PhDs and masters, and to be honored by such an institution is something that I do not take lightly, and it is, I know how much of a big deal it is, and I don't know, it will probably kind of become real when I actually go and I'm standing there receiving, excuse me, my honorary degree. And probably then I'll still be a little gobsmacked and, really? Like this is mine? I see my name, but this is for me? It's definitely a very, I'm proud to have been chosen as one of the people that this honorary degree is going to be bestowed upon. But it's also very humbling.
But to those believing that getting a university education is not necessary, the two-time Road March Queen and former party monarch champion believes
it's always good to have an education. But we all know people, successful people who went to college or went to university and dropped out and then became, created something amazing and went on to become millionaires and billionaires. But that's not something that doesn't happen every day. That's something that happens every now and then. Everybody, that's not a template for everybody to follow. I think going to, furthering your education is, it's kind of up to you as to how you see yourself and what you want to do. The fact that my daughter is in university, I am extremely happy that she's in university, that she is furthering her education in something that she truly loves. And if you find that passion that you can actually go and study, go and do it. Don't think that you shouldn't go and pursue your studies. I know of musicians and entertainers who have their degrees. They went to school and they studied whatever it was, whether it was to do, some actually went to, schools for the creative arts, and actually studied, music and vocals and art and different things. And then came out and pursued their careers. But there's also people who took a completely different route and just naturally had that talent and were just able to build on it through experience, through learning, through doing. And I would definitely say that, everybody's journey is different.
3 inspiring stories of Alison Hines, Trisha Tannis, and Ian Hickling, of people who are passionate about their work and how they can go on to make significant contributions to industries, communities, people. Hopefully others will be influenced, inspired, and also be willing to work hard to build up this country, the region, and influence the world. For CBC, I'm Stacey Russell.